Hi guys, and thank you for joining me for today's quick little video that I'm going to be going over in regards to BSBLDR403, because I've had a lot of questions around people that are really having difficulties really trying to understand this assessment task. So as you can see, I'm loaded into It's Learning here, and on the left-hand toolbar here, if we have a look, if we go into our nursing intake, we go into course resources that we have listed here, we have a little folder called BSBLDR403 Assessment Support Documents. Now, for those that actually joined me for the session we had in class on this unit, you'll know that we've got a little document here which has all of the deliverables or all of the things, like a little checklist of all of the things you need to submit in all 3 assessment tasks. Now, this will be a really good way for you to be able to go over your assessments to make sure that you have all of the required documentation. I'm just going to download this one because it's taking a while to load. But once this opens up, you'll be able to see that we have the areas here for assessment 1 in the correct order as well. So making sure that you're meeting everything that's on these lists here will really make sure that you're not missing anything and you're not leaving anything behind on your assessment tasks. So have a look at this in the support documents that are on It's Learning for you. And then when you're going to submit your work, just make sure that you've actually got all of these in your assessment tasks. Okay, so that's a little bit of a checkpoint document for you there. Now, in the support documents that we have here, I'm going to download this one as well. Now, this is only for assessment task 1. Now, what this does is I've actually already set out the document for you in the correct manner that it's meant to be formatted. Now, please note that this is only for the first assessment task until you've gotten used to how these documents flow and how they need to be filled out. You will need to format the documents yourself for assessment task 2 and assessment task 3. As we go down here, we can see that everything is still listed exactly the same. You still have all your procedures here. You still have everything here that you must do and your student deliverables. You have the case study, which again, I highly recommend everybody bases this assessment task on. And the reason why I formatted this document is to follow this case study. So you really need to read up in regards to Fernwood Pharmacy for the case study for this assessment task. Okay, so once we've gone through everything here, this is for only if you're doing it in your own workplace and you're not basing it on the case study. If you're choosing to go down that avenue, you'll need to provide all of this documentation here. But again, I do really recommend that you use the case study for this assessment task. So, your project, if you're basing it off the case study, you are the team leader of a team of consultants. Your organization has employed you and your organization to create a customer satisfaction survey for their company. You are leading your team, you must provide the following: a tailor-made customer satisfaction survey consisting of 10 questions. Please provide 1 A4 copy in printed format as a sample for viewing. You only need to do that in assessment task 3, not assessment task 1 or 2. These are the actual deliverables, things that you need to deliver at the end of your assessment task. Details regarding how the data will be collected, a description of the format in which the results will be presented, an estimate of the required number of surveys to be distributed, and an estimate of the total cost of the service. These are the deliverables for your project if you are basing it on the Fernwood case study. So now we get down to this little area, and this is where things have changed. This is where I've actually kind of color-coded everything for you and given you a little key down below here. So this is everything that should be completed in the correct format. So everything in green is in relation to down here. So everything in green is in relation to your meeting agenda and meeting minutes template from your project introduction. Now, this is where you'll be going through and introducing the project to your team. We then have our red one next, which is project planning meeting agenda. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and I'm going to show you all of this stuff in the actual templates below. All of this is pretty self-explanatory if you follow the colors with the key here. Now again, please note I've only done this for the first assessment task. Once you've completed this, you should be right to be able to do everything yourself for assessment task 2 and assessment task 3. So if we follow our format, we have our first template here, which is our project introduction meeting agenda. Now remember how important agendas are for all meetings. Agendas need to be sent out to the meeting applicants before the meeting actually commences. So that's exactly what you'll be doing here. You'll be sending out an agenda to your, team members that will be working on the project with you, informing them about what you'll be discussing at the upcoming meeting. Now remember, this meeting will be in regards to introducing them to the project that Fernwood Pharmacy has hired Southbank Market Research, where you're working at, to complete. So basically within this agenda, you just need to list everything that you'll be speaking about. Basically an introduction to Fernwood, what they are obviously hired you to complete, and this is when you will then be making all of your team aware of the project. That is your meeting agenda. Now this is your project organization meeting minutes. So these are the minutes that go along with this agenda. This agenda would have been sent out informing everybody what will happen during the meeting. These meeting minutes here is exactly documenting what happened, what was talked about, what was discussed, who's responsible for it, when does it need to be done by. These are your project organization or your project introduction meeting minutes. So this is everything that would be discussed in this meeting that you've sent the agenda out for. We then move down to our next appendix, which is Appendix 10, Meeting Agenda Template. Now this meeting agenda would be in regards to project planning. So we can remove Appendix 10 and we can type in Project Planning Meeting Agenda. So this agenda would be sent out to your team before the meeting takes place, letting them know that this meeting is all going to be about planning the actual project. So planning how you and your team are going to come up with the survey for Fernwood Pharmacy. Just like the previous one, you will list everything here that you'll be speaking about, and then you'll come down to the meeting minutes, and then you'll actually document everything here that you've spoken about. So again, this is just where you'll document everything that you've spoken about in your agenda above, making sure that you're really clearly listing what needs to be done, by whom, and at what time. This all needs to be listed here. From here, the next thing that you need to deliver is your actual project plan. Now, this is what you will be working with your team and documenting in these meeting minutes. So all you'll be doing is coming down and pulling the information from these meeting minutes and putting it into your project plan. So obviously your project title would be Customer Satisfaction Survey for Fernwood Pharmacy. What's the purpose of the survey? Well, you need to read the case study and the project deliverables and goals for all those things. Again, project goals and objectives. These are all listed for you at the very start of the assessment. You just need to provide them here. Remember, the very first thing I was speaking about at the start of this video was I went over all of the goals and deliverables for Fernwood Pharmacy. If we go back up again, here they are here. So these are all the things that you need to do. So when we go down to our project plan, you can simply list them in there. Again, goals, objectives, and deliverables, milestones. The next part of your project plan is your risk assessment plan or a contingency plan. You did this previously very lightly and very briefly in BSBLDR403. This time around, you're going to be doing it a little bit differently. Instead of putting your contingency plans under each action item, this time you'll be listing all of the risks or all of the issues that could occur throughout the life cycle of your project. You will list them all here, along with the likelihood of them happening, the impact of that risk or that issue to the completion of your project, and what your contingency plan is if that risk or issue was to occur. The next thing we have is our communications and reporting plan. When you're working on any project, you need to update all of your stakeholders in regards to how the project is progressing. So here you'll simply need to list every single stakeholder that is involved within your project, what information they require, how often they need that information, and in what format is that information going to be presented. Is it going to be done via email, over the phone, via a memo or a newsletter? This is the information you need to come up with here yourself. We also have scheduled review dates for when you will be reviewing the progress of your plan as well. You will simply list in what you'll be reviewing. So is this a first draft, second draft, final review, and then completion of the project, and what dates correspond with those scheduled review dates. The next thing that we'll be working on is a task list for your Fernwood Pharmacy Customer Satisfaction Survey project. So what is the very first task you have to complete? What's the start date? How long is it going to take to complete that? Is it a sequential or parallel task? Who is it dependent on? So who is actually tasked with carrying out that first task, and what resources are required? You will do this for every single task listed in your project plan above that you would have talked about with your team in these meeting minutes here in regards to your project planning meeting minutes. So we can label this project planning meeting. So all of the tasks that you list in there will need to obviously be listed here, and you need to list if they are a sequential or if they are a parallel task. So sequential means, are they being done in conjunction by themselves, or parallel, are they being done parallel at the same time as another task? You'll need to list all of them here. You will also need to complete a Gantt chart. This basically gives you a visual representation of all of this. So in here, you will list the tasks that are required. You can edit these top ones as much as you want to suit the format and the time frame that your project is going to take. You then simply just need to color code. So if the first activity is create draft of survey, maybe that's only going to last 1 day. So you will just come down to this little box here, you'll go to your design, and you will shade that in a color. You will do that for all of the tasks that you are listing here for your project to be a success, and please make sure that you list different colors for each task. Finally, we then go down to work schedule templates. You will need to do this for yourself and for the other 2 team members within your team. So in total, you will have 3 personal work schedules that you need to submit. Again, 1 for yourself and 2 for the other 2 team members working within your team. Think of this as simply as a roster of the tasks they need to complete within that project. Within that project. From there, we then move on to Appendix 10, which is the meeting agenda template for your team meeting with management. Now, if we go back up to our procedures at the top here, this one is very, very important. You'll need to meet with management to present your project plan, discuss the project's progress, and gather feedback to relay to your team in assessment task 2. This is very important. You need to have some form of feedback from management in regards to your team that you need to be able to provide them in assessment task 2. You also need to talk about the importance of maintaining communication throughout the duration of the project, and finally, gain approval for the actual project plan from your manager. This is, again, another area that people do miss out on. So if we go back down to that very last template here, this is the agenda that you will send to your manager or management in regards to actually getting the project approved. So again, you will send this agenda to management, basically briefly outlining what you hope to speak to them about, and then you will document all the minutes for those. Now, within these meeting minutes, you clearly need to have feedback from management to provide to your team in assessment task 2, and you need to have feedback from your manager saying that they approve you to start this project. They are the very last things that you need to do for assessment task 1. All right, so that is assessment task 1. Now, if we go for our checklist, we just talked about every single thing that is listed here. So as you are going through your first assessment task and as you complete the first thing, why don't you come back here and sign this off as that you've done it, and keep doing this as you go through all of your assessment tasks to make sure that you're submitting everything that is required to be marked as satisfactory within this unit. Okay, so we're going to briefly move on to assessment task 2 really quickly in one moment. I'm just going to pull that one up for us. And what we're going to look at here is how we need to move from assessment task 1 onto assessment task 2. So if we open up assessment task 2, the project reviewing document, we come down. Now remember, I have not formatted this document for you. You will need to follow the formatting of previous documents into this document here and into this assessment task. But let's go over everything listed here in assessment task 2. So part A is implementation. During your project implementation, you must complete the planned tasks. You will be simulating this. You will not be having to write about this. You will be simulating all of this and keeping that information in your head to discuss at a later date. Part B is where we move on to the progress meeting. So the very first thing that you need to provide for assessment task 2 is a progress meeting. Now, if we're holding a meeting, obviously the first thing you need to send out is an agenda. So if we go back to our actual checklist, we can see that the very first thing here is a project progress team meeting agenda. So we know that that is the first thing that we need to submit. Now, within that agenda, you need to make sure that you're going over everything that you will discuss with your team, which obviously you'll be listing here. Basically, the team progress meeting is just to have a quick catch up with your team, just to see how they're going in regards to the project. What are they doing? Where are they up to? Have they had any issues? And also the main important part is you need to report to your team on the meeting with management, your assessor, at the end of assessment task 1. This is where you'll be passing on the feedback that your management team gave to you in regards to your team. The easiest way to go about this is to maybe say that they have reduced the budget, or they have reduced the resources, or they would like your team to work together more closely to complete the tasks a lot quicker. But basically, there needs to be some feedback from management that you need to pass on to your team in regards to how they are performing, which is likely to highlight an issue with the team, such as work allocation, again, or provision of resources. Ensure that you explicitly promote the organization and its objectives. I've had a lot of questions in regards to this. So you'll be using this team meeting to making sure that you're explicitly promoting the organization and its objectives in regards to the survey that you are developing. Fernwood Pharmacy have obviously hired you to develop a survey that will help them understand and reach their customers more to be able to reach their business goals and their vision and mission statements. So you need to really ensure that your team are explicitly promoting the organization and its objectives. What do Fernwood Pharmacy want to do and achieve? We then therefore need to ask questions that will help us answer those questions. Really do go back and familiarize yourself with that case study though, as you really need to know all about Fernwood Pharmacy to ensure that you are explicitly promoting their organization and their objectives that they hope to achieve. You need to demonstrate formal analytical thinking techniques during this meeting to identify any issues and generate possible solutions, and seeking input from others as required. You need to conduct any mentoring or coaching sessions with your team as necessary to address any issues identified in their training planners, and following on from feedback or task schedule and assessment task 1. Please note you don't have to do any coaching or mentoring sessions if you believe your team don't have to do them. This is another optional scenario. Discuss any issues and record them along with corrective action taken in a project issues log. You may use a template at the end of this assessment task, see Appendix 3, or create your own. Again, this is entirely up to you. Your project may not have had issues, your project may have had issues. It's up to you, and up to you to simulate those if need be. The next part is another meeting agenda and another meeting minutes template, sorry. So if we look at procedure 3, you need to attend one 15-minute informal progress meeting with management to report on your progress as required. So again, you can use a meeting agenda and meeting minutes templates to fill this out. What your manager will be wanting at this stage is, let's just basically say for procedure 3, you would be roughly around about halfway through your project. So you will be updating management in regards to how your project is progressing and any issues that you may have encountered and how you dealt with them. Then we move on to part C, which is a written progress report. So you are required to prepare a written progress report, including your minutes or notes of the meeting, as well as your reflections on the implementation of the plan to date, and evaluation of your own performance as team leader. So for the written progress report, we will be using the following template. You'll be using this template here. You'll simply list your project title, obviously Fernwood Customer Satisfaction Survey. You will be the project manager, so you will list your name here. Progress report number, obviously it's going to be report number 1. RAG status, we'll deal with this in a moment, and that's listed at the bottom of this template, so you don't have to do anything just here at the moment. What we're doing here is listing all the tasks, milestones, and deliverables achieved to this period when this project progress report was completed. Any task or milestone you list here, you can list some brief comments in regards to how you actually went with completing those tasks, milestones, or deliverables. You will then list the scheduled date that you had for that task to be completed versus the actual date. If the scheduled date, for example, is the 17th of July and you finished on the 17th of July, you would obviously write the 17th here and the 17th here. You will do that for all tasks, milestones, and deliverables achieved up to this point. Remember, I've said before, at this point, you'd roughly be at the halfway mark of your project. The next section is where you will list all the major risks and issues. You will list what the risk and issue was, what the impact was to your project and your organization, and the action taken / management strategy you implemented to deal with that risk or issue. Recommendations and requests for moving forward for the next part of your assessment, your project. For the final part is what you will list here. Maybe you need to recommend and request more money in the budget. Maybe you need to recommend and request more training. This is where you will list any recommendations and requests for the final part of your project that you'll be completing and listing here. So this is the next part of the project. These are the tasks, milestones, outcomes scheduled for the next period. So again, you'll simply list the tasks, milestones, and outcomes listed that you still need to work on for the remainder of the project. You will list any comments here that will support the task or milestone and give the reader of this report a better understanding about what the actual task is and what's required in that actual task. You will again list the original scheduled date that you listed for all of these tasks in assessment task 1 versus what the new forecasted date will be. Again, these could match up. Otherwise, there may be a couple of days variance. Again, it's entirely up to you to simulate this information. Now we move on to our status down below here, our RAG status. We have red, amber, and green. So red requires urgent attention, project is very delayed and or significantly over budget. Amber equals minor concern, project is delayed and or over budget. Or green, project is on track to deliver as scheduled and within the budget tolerances such as plus or negative 10%. All you need to do for this is simply come up to this section here and highlight which area your project is currently on. So again, just come down to this section here for a key of a variety to show you exactly where your project is currently sitting at. That is what you need to do for assessment task 2. So again, if we look at our checklist, all we need to do for assessment task 2 is send out a project progress team meeting agenda, send out a project progress team meeting, or sorry, provide a project progress team meeting minutes. You need to have an informal project progress meeting with management, which will include a meeting agenda and meeting minutes template. And then you finally need to submit a written project progress report with any supporting documentation that will back up what you have written within that report. We'll now basically move on to assessment task 3 and what is required within this assessment task. So if we have a look at our checklist really quickly, we can see what is required within this assessment task. We can see that we need to have a team project progress meeting agenda, a team project progress meeting minutes, team post-project review meeting agenda, team post-project review meeting minutes. You also then need to do project presentation to management, which must contain a completed version of the project and survey results, which you can simulate this to be in whatever format you want. And then finally, the post-project review report. So if we go and have a look back at our assessment task 3 guidelines now, if we come down to what we need to do here, we have all of our procedures and everything we need to complete. So if we go back up to the top, procedure part A is your team meeting. You'll need to host a meeting with your team to ensure you finish the project by the planned deadline. Again, this is in relation to the first 2 ones at the top here. So obviously, again, with meetings, you need to send an agenda out first. So I will color code this. Green is in relation to the very first procedure. Sorry about that. So we're going to get rid of assessment task 1 now, get rid of assessment task 2, and then we'll go finally to assessment task 3. So green is making sure we're with the first one here. Now, if we go back to our little checklist that we have, team post-project review meeting agenda and team post-project review meeting minutes. We're going to highlight these ones in red because these are the next things that you need to submit for your assessment task. And if we move back to our assessment document, we will highlight those in red as well. So these we know that these 2 need to go together. During this post-project review meeting, you will do these ones here. You will fill out these sections. So these need to be mentioned. Part A, points 3 and 4 need to be mentioned within your meeting with your team in regards to how your team progressed. 2 sections in red. From there, we then move on to part B, which is a presentation to management. So this is where you'll present the final results of the project to management. Now, again, as it is a presentation, you can do it in 2 formats. You can do it in a meeting minutes and a meeting agenda template, or you can simply send them out an agenda. And then instead of filling out a meetings minute template again for probably the 15th time through these assessment tasks, what you can do instead is create a PowerPoint presentation to present to management and submit that alongside this assessment document. Within that presentation, though, you'll need to have some findings and I guess some information in regards to management of how you actually performed within the project, how your team performed, did you meet all of the deliverables and all of the requirements, and you would need to have a screenshot of your actual completed survey, or simply just list the 10 questions there that you would have asked, and you can come up with a rough estimate of how these survey results would then be presented to Fernwood Pharmacy. The easiest way of doing that is presenting the results in a bar graph or a pie chart. It's entirely up to you how you would like to come up and do that. But again, presentation to management, which is part B, we are going to highlight in yellow. We are then going to move back to our little checklist that we've developed, and we'll highlight this in yellow as well. Now, we then move back to our assessment document and we look at part C, which is completing the final review report. So you need to complete a post-project review report. You may use the post-project review report template provided at the end of this assessment task or create your own. I would use the one at the end of this assessment task. In this final review report, you need to ensure that you indicate which objectives your team achieved and did not achieve. You need to give reasons as to why you believe your team didn't reach all of its goals. You need to discuss any issues or problems you encountered with your team during the project, including any conflict that may have arisen. And you need to explain how you resolve those problems and explain to plan actions for any unresolved issues. So what we're going to quickly do now is we're going to quickly go down and have a look at that actual template. Here is your post-project review template, where you will list the name of the project, the date and location of the meeting that you are doing this post-review report in, and the name of the attendees. So basically the name of the people who are attending this meeting where you're going over your post-project review. Here is where you'll provide an overview of the project, basically what you were hired to do. Again, all of this is listed in Assessment Task 1, so you can simply list that all here. In the second section, you'll be reviewing by team goals, objectives, deliverables, and schedules as outlined in the project plan. So you'll be just writing out a brief review of all of the goals, objectives, and deliverables that you are meant to deliver. Once you've done that, you will then come down here and you will list all of the goals, objectives, deliverables that you are meant to deliver that you've mentioned above here. And what you will be doing is you'll be simply ticking one of these boxes in regards to did you meet those objectives, did you miss those objectives, or did you only partially meet those objectives? For anything in these two columns, if you've ticked any of the goals, objectives, or deliverables in these two columns, you need to provide a comment next to it justifying why you missed them or partially met them. In the next section of your post-project review report, you'll be going over what worked well and what could have gone better. So you'll simply list here what worked well throughout the project and what could have gone better. This then comes down to what lessons you learned as a team leader yourself and what you would do differently next time. You then document what you would do differently next time and what you will do to improve yourself as a more competent team leader. The next section that you need to fill out is the very last part of the post-project review report, and it is the principles and techniques of team leadership. How well did the team leader explain the principles and techniques associated with the following elements of team leadership? So what we need here is for you to list the principles behind delegation and work allocation, the principles behind goal setting. So why do we do it? Why do we delegate and allocate work? Why do we set goals? What are the actual principles behind each of the things listed here? You will then also need to list what tools or methods you can actually utilize to carry out delegation, to carry out goal setting, to carry out group dynamics and processes, to carry out individual behavior and difference. Basically, what you need to list here are the actual principles associated with each of these elements, the methods or tools you can utilize to actually implement them within a project, within a workplace. And this comment section here, what you need to list here is how you specifically handled these tasks throughout the project. So what did you do in regards to the project for Fernwood Pharmacy to set goals for your team? What different leadership styles did you utilize during this project? How did you motivate your team during this project? How did you use negotiation with your team during this project? You'll need to do that for all of the elements listed here. And finally, each team member must provide a candid assessment of the abilities of the team leader to promote team effectiveness. So you will need to get this filled out by the 2 employees that were working with you on this project. So in other words, you will get this and you will copy it twice and make sure that you provide the names at the bottom of each person who is filling them out. We can then go back up to our procedures here. And that is the final review report completed. We've completed the template. So let's mark these ones in blue. We've explained the principles and techniques associated with those leadership styles and leadership theories and the leadership management skills. And then you've given all your team members the survey to complete. And then finally, you need to include a brief reflection on your effectiveness as a team leader using the following structure if you wish. So this is basically like a very brief, very brief report. So section 1 should include the things you could have done better. Section 2 should give examples of how you believe your contribution to the work team served as a role model for your team and team members. And section 3 should include strategies for improving your effectiveness as a team leader. So again, if it follows the report format, section 1 is your introduction, section 2 is your body, and section 3 is your conclusion. It's entirely up to you to simulate all of this in regards to the information that is provided to you from your team members on those effectiveness surveys to complete. So again, if we then move back to our little checklist, we know that everything for part C was in blue. If we've done all of that, we've listed that here as such. Look, that is a really quick breakdown of all of these free assessment tasks for BSBLDR403 Lead Team Effectiveness. Now, all of these assessments do go into one another, as I've kind of indicated today. So please make your way through these assessment tasks and make sure you're starting on assessment task 1, then moving to 2, then moving to 3. Please follow this video at any stage if you're getting confused or you're getting worried if you're on the right track, or if you need guidance and assistance in regards to completing these actual assessment tasks. And remember, if you have any questions or concerns in regards to these assessments, please send me through a quick email or contact Cheryl directly, and she will get in touch with me to obviously provide you with assistance on these assessments. But thank you and good luck, and we look forward to reading all of your completed assessments once you've uploaded them to It's Learning. Thanks. Bye.